Hey Artichokes! Today we're going to talk about quite possibly the most complex question type in new quizzes. It's called formula. And it sounds like it should be straightforward. You're just giving a formula, but it's not. It's actually pretty complicated. So let's dive right into it so we can look at the nuances of what formula actually is. So we're going to start by clicking that blue plus button and going to formula. And right off the bat, you can see this is one of the larger question types when it comes to developing the question. But what it is actually fairly simple once you kind of understand what's going on here. So we need to come up with a question. They give us an example, what is 5 plus x? And you'll notice this x is in these tick marks. That is actually going to be a random variable for us. So what you're actually doing is, in my example that I'm going to show you, we're going to make a word problem for the students. And we're going to set one of those values in the word problem to be randomized. And what that means is student 1 is going to see a different value than student 2. So in theory, they're going to see different questions. The formula will be the exact same, but it's going to be randomized variables in what they're going to see for the question. So I know it's very complicated, I know it's a lot of work, but let's take a look at what that is. So in this one, I'm not going to Thanos snap and show you the next question. I'm just going to write out the question with you because this one is pretty intense. So we're going to start with a quick, easy word problem. Sally and Johnny were selling apples. So this one we're going to set as a constant. Johnny sold, let's say he sold 10 apples that day. And Sally sold, and now this is where we're going to bring in our variable. So the way we do that is we make a tick, we write the letter X, and then another tick. Now that tick can be found just above the tab key. More than Johnny. Oops. And then we want to ask them how many apples were sold total. Let's just fix all my grammatical errors here. And we have our word problem. So we're asking to find out how many apples were sold that day. We know Johnny sold 10, and Sally is going to sell a variable multiplier. Now the variable multiplier is going to depend on what we say next. So you can see that there's now an answer section with an X variable. And we have a minimum and maximum value. So to make this easy, I'm going to replace the 0 with 2 because we don't want a multiplier of 0. That would mean she sold 0. So for this one, I'm going to say 2 to 10. So now what that means is the student in that X part of the formula is going to see a random number between 2 to 10. So Sally's multiplier of how many more she sold than Johnny is going to be a random value between 2 to 10. It could be 6, could be 4, could be 2, 10, doesn't matter. It's just going to be a random variable. So that's where things are going to get really fun for you, is that now students are going to see a random question. It's going to be the same formula, but it's a random multiplier, so they can't really cheat. It's kind of maybe deter cheating a little bit. But next we have to put in our formula. So we're going to write our quick formula. So we know Johnny sold 10, and we have to say plus because we're adding Johnny's, and then we have to say 10x. Our x is our multiplier. So 10 times x. Now, what we do next is scroll down, and we're going to generate our possible solution. So we have to tell it how many solutions. I'm just going to leave it 200 because it's not going to make more than 200. I want to do an absolute, and I'm not going to do a margin of error or decimal points. So I'm going to click that blue generate button, and you can see here, it now generates all of the possible answers that we're going to have for students. So you can see I've got all of my random numbers. Now they're not in order, but you can count them 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10 and what the result is. So these are going to be the correct answers that the students are putting in. Now, this is all very confusing, I know. So let's take a look at what the students are going to see. So we'll scroll down and click the done button. And we're going to go ahead and click. Okay, so here is what we have for our students. Sally and Johnny were selling apples at their local farmer market. Johnny sold 10 apples and Sally sold 5 times as many as Johnny did. So we have to put in what our answer is going to be. So if we go back to our formula, we wrote it out, but your students would try to figure out the formula from here. So we know it's going to be 5 times 10, which is 50, plus 10 because Johnny sold 10, then we know the answer is going to be 60 apples were sold that day. Now, let's go back and let's click preview again, and you're going to see that now it's 10 times as many. So it's a random number every time we generate this quiz. So every student should, in theory, get a different equation a different variable than the other students. And that's it. I know it's a very complex question type, but once you understand the basics of it and the nuances of it, you actually can get really creative with this. You can have multiple variables if you want. Really quick, before we go today, I'm going to show you how that's done. So let's go back to editing. And anywhere in here, I can actually change this 10 to be another variable by using those tick marks and putting y instead of x. And now I can say Johnny sold 6 to 10. Or I could put 20 here. So now I have 2 variables in here. So this 10 would then change to y, and this would be y times x. And now we have 2 variables in our equation. And again, it's not changing the equation, it's changing the numbers that plug into the equation. So that's going to be it. This is probably, again, one of the harder question types, but it's probably one of my favorite once I understood it. So thanks for watching Artichokes, and have a great day.